Hey guys, Ted here. Welcome back to the channel. My previous video was about why I decided to leave the teaching profession, and this video is about what was next for me, becoming a WordPress developer. I didn't have a degree for this. I didn't go to school for this. No connections, no GitHub portfolio, just a former PE teacher with a hobby and a lot of coffee. So as I was a teacher, as I discussed in the last video, I started to develop a hobby of building websites. I initially did it just for a friend of mine who needed a website for his business, and then it started to grow a little bit. I started to learn the different builders and realized that I really enjoyed working on it. I would come home from school exhausted and would look up how to build a specific type of page, or how to use a different builder, and that was fun for me. That actually was giving me energy that my current job was sucking away from me. And I realized that even during my plan periods at work, I was looking up how to fix problems that I was having building my websites, and that sort of research and learning was actually fun for me. Whereas my actual job as a PE teacher, I was putting zero effort into improving my craft as a teacher or learning new techniques for behavior management. I had zero interest in growing myself in that area, but I had endless energy to grow my set of skills as a developer. So over time, that became clear to me that this is where I need to go. And the next question was, how am I going to pull that off? I was making a teacher's salary, so that is a handcuff right there. And then even take that out of the way, what path am I going to take to do this? I had a few options. I could go get a second bachelor's degree in computer science, but to me that just seemed like such a waste of my first degree. And maybe that's something I should have just accepted, a little bit of sunk cost fallacy perhaps, but I really had a tough time with the idea of going back for a second bachelor's degree, even though I fully recognized that the first bachelor's degree in physical education was a mistake. My second option was that I could go get a master's in CS. It would take a few classes to buffer me from an undergrad degree that had nothing to do with CS. And then I would be able to take a master's class or a master's degree in CS. But I realized that was probably overkill for what I wanted to do. I wasn't trying to learn or create algorithms and data structures. I liked building websites. I liked building apps, but I really thought that a master's in it would probably be a little bit too much for what I was looking to do. So the third option was a boot camp. And ultimately, that's what I decided would be the best fit for me. But again, it came down to how I was going to pull that off, how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to time it with my current job. I was fortunate enough that I was coming from a teaching career, so I did have summers that I could work with, but it still was a struggle to figure out how I was going to finance this. So ultimately, what I decided to end up doing was begin freelancing. Most of my work came from Upwork, and I'll probably do a video at some point on that experience, and maybe even a video on how to be successful in Upwork if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. But I started working on Upwork, starting getting some other freelance gigs from people I knew and from people that were referred to me as I started to build that network. And slowly but surely, I started to put together a bit of a nest egg that I was planning to use for financing this bootcamp. And I was also starting to get into crypto, and thankfully 2021 in crypto was very profitable. So I used that money as well, not for a fancy car or a big house. I used it to finance a career change. And so ultimately, I got to the point right after COVID, as I talked about in my other video, I realized I have to make a change, and I finally realized I was ready financially to make that change. So went to my wife, had that conversation about how I was going to pull this off, and ultimately I took the leap. The next step was choosing which bootcamp I wanted to go to go with, and I ultimately decided to go with General Assembly. They had a program that was focused on JavaScript, among others. A lot of the other ones that I looked into were working with Ruby on Rails, which I just didn't feel like was going to be beneficial to me and what I was looking to do as part of my tech career. And General Assembly was great. They worked with me or they had a time that worked great. So once I left my job after winter break, I immediately jumped in. I think it was 2 weeks later. And they were going to wrap up, I think, April 5th, and my first son was due on April 13th. So I hoped that he didn't come early, and that would give me about a week after finishing my boot camp that he would come, which is actually exactly what happened. The boot camp itself was great. I ended up working in a career in WordPress development, and the boot camp didn't spend a ton of time on WordPress, but they did spend a lot of time on JavaScript, styling with CSS, HTML, obviously, and those were great foundations to launch a WordPress career off of. There's been plenty of times in my career where I've needed to use the skills that I learned in the boot camp to be successful as a WordPress developer. They also gave us the freedom to kind of choose some different languages to build projects with. I would typically choose PHP and Laravel for those, which again was great as I was heading into a WordPress career. Those have been extremely helpful. Once the boot camp was over, I had my son, and I took about a month to just kind of be a dad. And after that, it was really time to buckle down and try to find a job in the career. I started applying like crazy. I'd love to do another video kind of talking about that process, finding a job, applying some of the tips and the tricks that I learned as I went through that, and ultimately found what has become the perfect position for me. I've been at the job I'm at for 2.5 years now, and I love every minute of it. I work in support. So I support the clients that we have built websites for. If they ever have a bug or something crash, they come to me. And that allows me to have new challenges every day, but it also allows me to kind of use the teaching that I had previously had a career in, because lots of clients want help learning how to make edits to their sites, how to use the builder that we used, and ultimately just create content. So I get to borrow skills from my previous career and repurpose them into this new one, which has been fantastic. So listen, if you are moving from a previous career and trying to get into tech, trying to become a WordPress developer, or simply learning about what you might be interested in, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope this has been useful information for you and a good perspective. Until the next time, take care.